Hey, welcome to Air Called Anything. So I'm back on the CB Performance Builder's Choice Kit engine, and what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to have a look at the case and talk about some of the differences between this case and earlier cases. And this is by no means a definitive explanation or guide, it's just the stuff that I'm noticing. On the front, the first thing I noticed was this galley plug. There would be a galley plug here. It's been drilled out and tapped for full flow. So CB Performance have done that for me. That's one of the options when you buy the kit, to have it full flow. They obviously charge for that, and it is something you can do yourself. There's loads of videos out there about doing it. You drill a hole in the plug, drill a hole a little bit bigger, you lever the plug out, you drill exactly the right diameter hole, and then you get a pipe tap and you tap it. It's a relatively simple thing to do. So what works there is the oil pump, which I haven't taken out of its box yet, so I don't know, but it should be blanked off so that no oil goes up this galley here into the engine, and then that supplies new oil for the whole engine. The galley runs the length of the motor down this side here, and then goes out through the bearings, is distributed from the 3/4 head to the 1/2 head side of the motor. Other things I noticed, never come across this before, it's a universal case, and over here we have the dipstick mount for Type 3 motors. So I need a blanking plate for that. It's also a great place, if you drill and tap a hole in it, you can put oil temperature gauge, which is what I'll do, so I know exactly what temp the oil's running at. So I don't think that came with the kit, and when I spoke to the CB Performance guys about have I got everything I need to build this engine up, they said yes, that's all you need. So if it's not there, that's their bad. I have to buy one. I can get them here in the UK. It's a pretty simple thing to get. What else to notice about the engine? On the front side here, obviously it's got the 3 mounting points for Type 2 motors, and that's about it. Big differences I can see there. On the side, these have been bored out, and it comes with case savers. I've never had a case with case savers before, so hopefully no danger of stripping threads when we're talking down the heads. So that's good. And then here, you always have a problem trying to undo that nut and bolt when you're removing or putting an engine back in a car. And here there is a built-in captive nut, which is a really nice design. So that's kind of interesting. Could be handy, could be just as much problem. On the back here, there's a hole. I'm like, what's this hole for? So I've done some research and asked some friends, and it's a diagnostics port for later engines. So I'm going to have to plug that up somehow. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. Maybe there's something you can get already. I'll have to look into that. Other things. From the main bearing here, I've never noticed this before in any of my cases, there's a little drain hole. So the oil comes around the bearing and it drains down into your cam bearing. And then there's a hole at the bottom of the cam bearing, and it goes out the bottom there. That's kind of quite nice as well. The other side, nothing remarkable to see on this apart from the stampings. It's an AS41 case, cast in Brazil, magnesium, and that is it for the outside. So let's split it open and have a look inside. One thing I wanted to mention, inside, when I'm looking inside, for instance, I'm looking inside the generator stand area, the casting, there are lots of burrs and fine bits of metal which could easily flake off and get inside your engine, and you don't want that happening. So I'm going to have to spend a lot of time cleaning this motor up. Now if we look inside, we can see there's a lot of work being done inside to clearance the balanced crankshaft, and so lots of material taken out all over the place. done really, really nice. But if we have to take a closer look, you'll see that there are loads of burrs left over by the work. There's loads of these little shards of metal which will easily come off. Look, there's one just come off in my hand there. There you go. Just these burrs. And if you run your fingers around the edges of the mating surfaces, they're really super sharp. And I've been reading that it's a good idea to get some sandpaper and just lightly, very lightly, take off any of these sharp edges, just to reduce the chances of getting little tiny shavings of magnesium alloy in your bearings, in your piston rings, screwing everything else up. Other things to notice is there is a connection here between the rear or front main bearing and the cam here, dripping off into the sump, which is kind of quite interesting. I've not seen that before. I think that's a mod you can do in other cases, is just get a Dremel and cut a groove in there, which is kind of interesting. I've not seen that before. So over on this side, pretty the same deal with all of the clearancing, more little shards of aluminium, magnesium alloy that can come off that need to be cleaned up. Loads of clearancing work being done. I mean, the bearing mating surfaces all look fantastic and clean. I mean, the inside of the engine's never been run and it looks spotless. There are lots of little bits of tiny bits of magnesium in the bottom, so it needs a proper good clean. That's it. So what I was going to do, I've not been moving on with this project because I've been waiting for the weather to get better, because I was going to spray paint 2-pack satin black the case. But I've had second thoughts about that, because having looked at it, there's 3 reasons. One, the most important reason is I don't want paint getting into places where it shouldn't get, and making sealing surfaces not working properly. And I just want it to be a really good, strong, solid, long-lasting motor. This is not like one of the cars that I'm building that I'm only going to drive occasionally. I'm going to drive the hell out of this thing, so I want it to last a long time. Second reason is, to do that, there's a lot of masking involved and a lot of thinking. I was thinking over the last couple of weeks about it, how I was going to do it. I was going to make a cardboard gasket coat between the two halves, and then I was going to nip them down so that they're together, so paint can't get into this mating surface. And then I was thinking, but when you split it, the paint's going to get all messy on the edges when you take it apart. You have to get a razor blade out and cut the paint off, and then all the other areas, I just really thought, I really cannot be bothered. So, and then the third reason is the thermal efficiency of the engine. Okay, so if it's satin black, the small portion of it you see on the back of the engine here, underneath the tins and stuff and the components, will look really cool, seriously cool. And whenever I see a painted engine, I always think that looks really nice. But being black absorbs more heat, doesn't radiate heat as well. So is the engine going to run a little bit hotter? I don't think there's any proven evidence to say it would, but it stands to reason, doesn't it? If it's black, it's going to retain its heat. So I am just going to clean the engine up, and to do that, I'm going to deburr it. I'm going to flush out all the oil galleys. I'm not going to take the plugs out. I'm not going to go that far, but I am going to completely blast it out, and I'm going to use about 2 or 3 cans of WD-40 in each oil passageway and blast it out and give it a proper thorough cleaning. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. To deburr the case, I'm using a few simple tools. I'm not sure if I'm going to need all of these, but rat's tail file, round file, large flat file, small flat file, itsy bitsy tiny file. Also got a knurled end, which is good for pulling off deburrs. I've got some 80 grit, I'll use that. They're I have some 240, 320, 400 and 800 grit. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get into deburring. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a spot somewhere. I think I'm going to pick the generator stand, oil filler, passageway, which has got loads of factory casting burrs and stuff inside. So I'm just going to use my small file to start with, and I'm going to work away on that. Just a little bit of a wipe. I mean, this material is so soft, this magnesium. It's a wonder these engines actually work, they're so soft. I mean, always beggars belief. That's all the cleaning up I had to do on this half for the factory cast. Now I've got to look at cleaning up the areas which CB Performance have machined, all the edges which are rough and need deburring. Now I think it's a little bit naughty, I think, that they sell these kits, builder's choice, easy to build, and they don't tell you or give you a warning that this case needs cleaning up and deburring inside. Because if you run it like this, those bits of metal are going to wreck your engine very quickly. They're going to come off. I mean, some of them are just loose and just a little bit of heat and movement of oil inside and the power of the engine. It's going to shake them all off, and you're going to end up with shavings of metal down in your sump, and it's going to end up in your pump. It's going to knacker your pump. It's going to end up everywhere and wreck the engine before you've even got going. So the first thing I'm learning about these kits is you do need a little bit of experience, and you also need to do a little bit of research as well. So there's no instructions with the engine. I asked when I bought it, I was like, are there any instructions to go with this? And they're like, no, but you can find everything you need online, which is what I've been doing. So right, I'm going to get into sorting out the clearancing burrs. This is all the crap that's come out the case, and these are just the bits that have fallen out, not including all the bits that are still lodged in there. Both engine halves now deburred and they need to be cleaned out, so I'm going to go out into the workshop, going to fire up the compressor, and I'm going to blow out every last crevice and clean it all out with compressed air. I've blasted it out with air, but that's not by any means got rid of everything. So the next job is to clean it all out with WD-40. I've got 2 cans here, and I've got a 3rd can in the garage in reserve. Never used 3. I've only done a few engines. As I say, I'm no expert. I've literally done a handful of engines before, and this is the first performance later model engine I've ever done. So literally, I'm going to use a whole roll of toilet paper, kitchen towel, and I'm going to try not to wreck my dining area in my kitchen for fear of being murdered by the missus. looking for any sort of crud that comes out. It's coming out clean. I want to go inside all these webs along the top here and make sure there's no material in there that's blown up or landed in there from all the excessive machining that's happened, and from me blowing air around and me deburring the edges. There's no like magnesium dust. It's coming out clean. So I'm just going to go around now and I'm going to completely wash out every surface. Blast it all off with this. Now this is the area I'm most concerned about, because that's where all the little filings and chips and stuff ended up. You don't want those floating around in your sump. I noticed there was some sparkly dust underneath the dipstick, the bottom of the dipstick tube, and now that's all of that. I can see there's little bits of metal magnesium in a big pool of WD-40 here. This is what we want to see. So that's one half of the case done. I am going to move on to the other half. Back out in the workshop, finished with the cleaning, pretty happy, sparkly clean, no burrs, no bits of metal, no old grease and no bits of tissue paper. So that's the cleaning of the case done, and as I'm not going to paint it, I can get on with assembling it. Assuming all the parts are here, I'm already thinking, wait a minute, did I see when I unpacked the box, did I see dowel pins? No dowel pins, so I'm going to have to dig out the bearings and see if dowel pins come with the bearings. I doubt they do. So I made the video about cleaning the case a few days ago, and I was moaning about the fact CB Performance didn't supply dowel pins, and I came across this pack which includes the block off, Type 3 block off, and a set of dowel pins, and also your oil pressure relief valve and your oil bypass valve, I remembered it this time, and a bunch of studs and stuff. So all good, and your drain plugs, all in the kit. So they did think of it, so my apologies CB Performance. So the next job will be building up the crank, and before we do that we have to test fit the rods, weigh them to see if they are indeed balanced, and all that sort of stuff. So that will be coming up in the next couple of weeks. Thanks for watching.